Oh, good.
Welcome to Better Together, a local page here that's focused on local news, local politics, and how we can make this world better together. And we have a big election coming up here in less than 50 days, I believe. So for a majority of the council on the Grand Junction City Council is up for grabs, and we have a friend of mine and fellow council member, Scott, well, not fellow to me, but fellow to the upcomings, council
Indeed.
member Scott Beilfuss, joining us. And Scott, thank you so much for kind of looking here to figure out who these candidates are and getting your thoughts.
Great. Thanks for having me, Nick. And hopefully we'll get a few viewers to, are they going to be able to put stuff in the chat?
I would love that.
Okay.
We'll see if people start to file in, and if we get some chats, then we'll read those out too. Why not?
Great.
And my first question to you, Scott, is why did you decide to run back in the day?
Well, and I've been I get asked that periodically, and I tell them flat out because I couldn't stand that the opposition was running unopposed. So it was just stepping up. I was panicking that, nobody was going to be representing progressive values and platforms in the area. And there is certainly, having lived here 40 years, you hear the same old rhetoric all the time and same old, same old. And it was like, okay, we got to get some things out there that are really important to the area. And I'm happy to stand up and do that. Little did I know how much work it was to run for office.
Certainly.
But, because I had been involved with campaigns for several years as an officer in the Democratic Party and stuff, I'd certainly worked on a lot of campaigns from national to city council. And so I knew my way around the advertising part a little bit and the campaigning part, but all the other stuff that's, in the gray area on these campaigns, personality things that come up and, the weird schedules and trying to raise money and all those things. I'm used to I was self-employed for my whole life pretty much. I'm
Hmm.
used to doing things by myself, making my own decisions, taking care of stuff. And I don't mind doing things that way, but that's not the best way to run a campaign because it's a ton of work. I had a kitchen cabinet on both of my campaigns that helped out with, bouncing ideas off of and a little bit of fundraising and stuff, but not a big organization like some people have. They seem to be getting bigger and bigger. And, city council races, my last race, I ran for 55 first, on the House race, totally different kind of race. And then this last one, city council, is a different duck too. And those used to be minor races, 4 or 5 thousand bucks,
Right.
gets you in the race. And when I ran, people are up in the mid 30s, I think.
Do you remember how much you raised?
I think I raised 11,000 bucks and
Yeah.
probably
So on the
1,500.
lower end, honestly.
I was, right just above Jamie Porta, and that was it. So I, you don't have to raise a lot of money, in my opinion, but you have to spend it wisely. And that's where I was able to do some things because I knew where the votes were going to get, that were going to support me, were going to come from the precincts that they would be, the demographics that I was aiming
Sure.
for. I mean, it was a shooting spitballs a little bit, but I had enough experience that I could make an educated guess on these things. And not everybody can do that. So I was able to do it with a small amount of money. I think it seems, and I'm sure the audience would agree with me. It seems like people are just doing the big money shotgun approach these days.
I just heard a city council candidate mention their budget right now is aiming for $50,000.
Ridiculous. So, but there you go. I mean, that's what they're doing now. They're going to raise as much money and it's going to make up. My strengths came from my involvement in the community, showing up, participating, being at all these events, right and left, and so people knew me. This a lot of people are not coming with that background, so they have got to make up a lot of ground in 2 months on these
Yeah.
short races. And, their advice coming from people that will spend their money is to raise as much money as possible. And I'll spend it for you and you'll win.
Yeah, sure. I
I mean,
mean,
that's kind of it. So
pay to play, sadly, is
pay to
continuing to
play.
infect local politics more and more. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of these candidates and getting the word out, what do you want to hear most right now from these candidates, or, you know, what positions, or what are you hearing and what do you want to hear, and go from there.
Yeah, good question. It's city government is a lot different than other forms of government. So, I mean, for me personally, I want to hear some things that they're really passionate about and they really want to work on specific issues, two or three, something that they're going to come out swinging at. And I don't know, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the websites, and I haven't been to a forum yet. But it's I think people want to hear specific things that people are passionate about. I certainly use that in my campaign. I ran on sustainability, affordable housing, and homelessness.
Hmm.
And those, right away I got into all three of those things. And
Why do you think candidates are so reluctant right now? Because in looking at their websites, it's very flower language, we want it to be better and we want a community and we want to listen. Like, why aren't we getting those specifics?
they're getting bad advice. They're literally getting bad advice,
Mm,
and they're the people are telling, play the middle, be cool, we'll see what happens, blah, blah, blah. It's all about name recognition, not so much about strong messaging. And
right.
so, okay, see if it works. It'll work for somebody.
Sure,
Somebody's
right.
winning. If both candidates are doing the same thing, to me, that's an open door to come out and say, this person isn't saying anything. Here's what I'm
Hmm.
saying. Let's get
Right.
going, you know? So for some candidates, I look at that as an opportunity. Now, I don't know if they're looking at it that way. I mean, maybe they're all going to play that game. But yeah, that's if you have a ton of money in a long time, that's not a bad way to start. But if you got a short period of time and a limited amount of money, you better make people feel good about supporting you right out of the chute because you only get so many chances. Conventional wisdom in campaigning and marketing and sales, all that stuff is that people have to see a person and a message 15 to 20 times for it to stick.
Sure.
Well, if that message is nothing,
Right. It's not very
nothing
memorable.
will stick. So if your message is, yes, I'm going to fix Fourth and Fifth Street, yes, I'm going to fix homelessness, and these are some ideas that I have, then people are going to start listening. But if it's, we're going to plant more flowers and put up more Christmas lights, okay, well, I'm not saying that people are saying that, but that's
So,
an example.
with the current group of candidates, are you hearing anyone right now that's putting anything forward that's memorable, that's starting to stick?
Well, like I said, I haven't been that involved with any of them. I've talked to some of the candidates, not just real, frivolously, would not about specifically what you're going to do. I'm going to be talking to some candidates probably in the next 2 weeks,
Okay,
uh, and I'll encourage them to step up and do things, or get a message out that resonates with specific voters. I mean, you got to find out your group. One of the groups that I work with a lot in the past, and even as a career wise, I worked with a little bit is the retirees. Um,
sure.
they tend to vote. Let's make them feel good about voting for me. What do they want to hear? They want to hear that we're not going to change too fast. We're not going to grow too fast. That traffic is crappy, and I'm going to work on it. And they want recreational amenities and they want safety. So those were not my top three things, but I absolutely could talk to that crowd about those type of things. And so you've got to, figure out that group that you're looking at. Well, and those people vote. And that's the other
Yes.
thing, find the demographics in the city that these people are going to turn out. And that's who I need to get right now. Cause you don't have a ton of time to knock doors and honk and wave and all that stuff, you know, so unless you have a big organization to do that, but it sounds like they're going more towards social media and advertising than boots on the ground.
I'm seeing a lot of Facebook ads starting to crop
Oh,
up. So
really? Oh,
yeah, I think and more are coming, I have no doubt. But knocking doors is always gonna be classic. Always something I'll push candidates towards 100% and talking to the people. Shockingly, actually speaking with the voter directly is gonna still be your number one go.
well, and that's where you get your stories about, you know, to use at forums and debates and stuff. I mean, I just talked to somebody yesterday that told, you know,
Yep,
laid this whole thing out to me. You don't get that sitting around just pressing buttons and, you
right,
know, writing checks.
right. Well, as we're having viewers starting to trickle in, you can press buttons and put in the chat any stories or questions that you have. So thank you for joining us.
Right?
My next question to you, Scott. Again, Scott Beilfuss here, City Council member, talking through this upcoming election. What are these candidates going to face day one? You have some people already serving with you, but the new ones as well. What are we looking at?
You know, it's a little shell shock because it is a weird for government. It's not intuitive. You know, a lot of the candidates have sat in the audience like I did for years and thought that maybe we knew a little bit about what's going on, but the way it runs is much different. Communications is very difficult. It's very bureaucratic. There's a lot of personalities involved. There's 14 different departments in the city.
Mm,
So if you're working on one project, sometimes it involves three, four, five of those. And to get information is not easy. So, you know, it's a little kick in the gut. They do a good job with orienting new hires, newly elected people, you know, about the different departments, what they do. The budget process is huge, all that stuff. But then you go, okay, wait a minute. All right, I need all this additional information for, you know, my platform, what I told voters I would do, and
right.
you find out that is not regular, easily available. It's tough. So, and then you have seven people on council on top of it. Some of them are seasoned, some of them are jaded, some of them are angry, some of them are, you know, and you got to get four votes to do anything. So you got to, you know, that takes a couple months to figure out who your alliances are with and who you can depend on. And that changes, of course, depending on the issue. So I thought I was a moderately good politician, but I not on the city council level so much. I've had alliances with people that you wouldn't think I would have alliances with. I have had business people in town come up and just say, "Man, I had you pegged wrong. You
Okay.
are really, you know, you're really thoughtful about these issues. You don't swing all right and left." And you show up at meetings and you talk to people, and that's really important to the local business members. So
Totally.
that's probably another thing, Nick, you know, that hits you is that it's more time than you think.
Yeah, typically, how much time do you spend as a council member? Like a week or month?
Um, you know, on a weekly basis, a busy week, probably 30 hours easily, you know, because you think about all the reading you have to do for the meetings, and then there's a lot of meetings on top of that, and then you have side coffees and meetings and going to ribbon cuttings and look at new properties and all those sort of things. So yeah, it can easily be 30 hours in a week. You know, on a soft week, it might be 20 hours.
Sure.
You know, it could go up even into 60 hours for a lot of people. If you're mayor pro tem, you know, that's even more time. There's more meetings. And so, yeah, it's quite a bit of time, you know, and people make big deal about the little bit of money that we make on the whole thing. It would be nice to get paid a little more, and have to have a budget, but to me, there's more things I would rather have than more pay with the city. I mean, we have no administrative support. We have a wonderful lady in
Mm,
the office that helps with scheduling and stuff. She's great, but she's one person for like 15 people in the city. We don't have an office. We don't have meeting place that we can meet. We have to schedule things, in boardrooms and coffee shops. So the setup is not good, for.
So has that as that part of the city council, not having those resources as a council member, do you think that affects your ability to actually represent the voters and the people that put you in?
Well, I think it definitely affects how the community views us. Here we are in the city hall, which is already cold and, a lot of security and stuff. It's not that easy to get into. Um, I shouldn't say it that way. I mean, you can walk through the door and get some help, but it's not welcoming and stuff. I mean, I told the city manager right away, I want an office for us, and I want some places to meet and support and things.
Sure,
And if the community if we had regular hours at City Hall, at a decent office, with some screens, we could show things and do stuff and really do a good job of meeting with people. I think that would make a big difference for a lot of folks. I, I try to drag people into City Hall as much as possible, or meet them on their turf, out in the community. But, um, the city doesn't realize how cold the city seems to the public a lot of times. You got 3 minutes to talk at a city
sure.
council meeting. You have no minutes to talk at a workshop. You gotta make appointments. You just, you might wait 3 months to get an issue visited. We can do a lot better job with this whole thing. So those are things I would like to change a lot more than the pay thing. And,
Okay.
for me, I'm retired. I'm used to this kind of schedule, having done community and political organizing here, but, a lot of people have jobs. So, it's tough for them, and we should make it easier for them to engage their constituents, have a place to meet, have some regular hours that work with their work schedule. So, I'm hopeful with the new manager that we can change a couple of these things before I'm done, and we'll see what happens. I'm not, Mike comes from Fruita. I'm not sure what their situation. Much smaller town though,
Sure. Well, what you just put forward is actually a platform of transparency and communication. And I hear that out of every single candidate. When you were doing this page, did some quick summaries of each candidate where they got to submit their own statement and three of their top issues. And transparency, communication, all keep coming up. And
Good
we
luck.
haven't yet seen or heard what exactly that means, other than I'll respond to your emails and maybe hold some coffees. And folks can that have the time. Other people, you have council members right now that are working dads of young children, and as a dad of a young child, I don't know how they do it, but and so opening up those avenues makes a lot of sense. So hopefully we'll start hearing some concrete stuff out of our candidates.
Yeah, and what transparency even means to the public is
Sure.
the question, and quick responses. I mean, I'll tell you what, I mean, even me asking departments and stuff for information, I've probably 50% of the time I don't hear back from them. So you got,
Yeah, and you represent us. You are the directest representation that we can get for our government. And I know I've heard Councilman Simpson doing Cora requests, Colorado Records Act requests on his own city as a
for the
council member.
city. Yep.
That's tough. That's not a great look. This information we tried work. Scott, you and I worked on the anti No on 29 Road debt campaign, and just pulling teeth to try and get the information that other parties had that was supposed to be public information. It's difficult, difficult.
Yeah, and there are ways to get information and stuff, but you and I and a handful of other people in the community have done those things,
Right.
learned how to do it, and learned how to word them, and learned how to, go for additional information. But most of the public does not have any idea how to do that.
Yeah.
So they think they can just walk up and get an answer. It's really tough sometimes. So I would love to change that. I would like to be a lot more, citizen centric on a lot of these things. I'm not sure how to do it, but certainly a conversation. One of the things that became apparent right out of the chute with the city is like, we were pigeonholed into these little meetings and stuff. And a lot of times, oh, don't worry, you'll be able to discuss things at the meeting. Well, you'll get to the meeting, the issue will be up, and all of a sudden you find out, oh, we have to have this decision at this meeting. So wait a minute, I got a bunch of
Right,
questions
right.
that I need answers to, and these questions may take 3, 4, 5 days, another week. Oh no, we can't, we don't, sorry, you've got to make a decision now. So, the ability for city council members to meet and get information is one thing I'm working with Mike Bennett on right now, and John Shaver's been very supportive, the city attorney. So even if we could get 1 or 2 meetings a month that were just open discussions, have people from the community come in with issues, little roundtables, I mean, that would help a ton. And I'm hoping we can get there. But we
So,
could have some times, during the week and in the evening,
right.
for working people to come.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And having the city manager be involved in those and get some answers directly from him. And I know, Greg Caton was pretty infamous of creating firewalls around himself and the whole city. So
Yeah,
that's the former city manager before Michael Bennett.
yeah.
So focusing on the election preview side of things before I ask you my last question directed at you, any candidates right now that you think would join you in these efforts to try and bring out more direct city responses where people can hear from them and get some quicker responses to these big questions that you are forced to vote on without as much information as you'd like?
Well, like I said, I haven't had direct conversations. Well, I mean, I've talked to several of the candidates, but not specifically about that. I can't imagine them not saying, yes, I want more communication.
Sure.
But we would also have to dig into what the guardrails would look like on those things and their schedules, because a lot of the candidates running have full-time jobs and young families. So,
Right. That's true.
I would hope they would all be on board with that, but what that looks like, I'm not sure. Um, some of the community was really up in arms over the sustainability plan, the multimodal plan, the Fourth
Right.
and Fifth Street, because they felt like the community did not have a chance to talk about that, nor did they know the information going up front. So I would think everybody running for office should know about some of those complaints. I bet, I
Sure.
guess some of them don't, and come up with some better ways. We need to get the heck out of the office too. I mean, get out of City Hall and go to the neighborhoods.
Right.
I mean, the city manager has this once a month coffee with, in different parts of town, good for them, but we need a lot more of those things. And they can't be an 8 o'clock in the morning coffee. I mean, we need to talk to the people that are working, who's
Be nice.
who are driving to school with their kids and that sort of thing. So, it's a lot of work to do that on top of the work that we have. Some of us are able to do that, and I think we gotta try some different stuff.
So this might be an unfair question to our candidates, but do you look at a candidate's available time, to be able to do these things when you look at whether they should be elected?
No, not really, because
Okay.
it's more about being effective than being available, I think. I mean, well, that's not the right way to put it, but it's, different people have different skills. Certainly, I come from a different area than a lot of people. I have to explain people my background. I mean, even on council and at the city, sometimes I have to explain to them my background, that I was a salesman and
Right.
working in politics. I'm used to the fight. I'm used to, quick pivots on issues and stuff. And we got this law, the slow moving, a lot of times bureaucracy. That's very frustrating to me. And, sometimes it comes out, I'm sorry. And, but different people from different backgrounds can work with that,
Mhm.
they're bigger. I mean, when I talk to, certain groups about city government and stuff, I tell them, you're looking at 7 people up there. It's kind of like picking a jury. What's their background? Where do they come from? What do they do for a living? What do they have for a family? So it doesn't really matter so much, what your availability is. It's more of how you operate and how open you are and how much you want to really work with the public,
Totally.
And once you get in a leadership position, that can swing a lot of ways.
Hmm.
And, I feel like a good leader goes to the people, is open to all, ilks out there. But there's a lot of leaders that will only talk to their buddies in small groups and, be available, once in a while. And so, but it's tough with city council because, when you have a working council, there are
Yeah.
challenges with schedules.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I think that's a massive difficulty. We see that with several elected bodies, sadly, is just trying to both have a life and represent their people. So there's a lot to be said for paying our representatives to work and focus full time on that position. So my last question for you, Scott, and I'm calling it a spicy question,
Be
as
careful. Bring
as I'm
that.
hoping to have all candidates on, and I'll be sure to ask them something that we hopefully disagree on, so we can discuss it. Uh, Scott, you voted for and maybe I didn't do all my homework, but you voted to approve the Costco tax holiday when trying to attract them here. Is that correct?
That was kind of a tough one. And I don't know if you, I mean, when I voted for it, I said this is not something I normally vote for, but I'm holding my nose and 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 supporting it right now because um it was a fair amount of jobs and it was something that the community, I mean, I didn't have anyone come up to me and say we don't want a Costco. They did come up to me and say we don't want to pay for, the
Okay.
tax.
Yeah, I guess I was one of those people that said welcome it, but I don't want a dime going to a multi-billion dollar corporation.
Right. And people should know that the money wasn't going to go to Costco. It was going to the developer,
Sure.
a Goldberg Group out of Denver, who the city has worked with in the past, but not incented them in the past. And so we kind of got sold a deal. I mean, these guys were straight up guys. I don't think they were, you know, feeding us a bill, but in that vein, all of a sudden we start noticing everybody comes up with the same story. This project isn't quite penciling out.
Right,
It's
exactly.
got a gap. As soon as you hear that gap thing, run because
Yes.
they're
The
gonna
fiscal
have
or feasibility gap, I think it was
yeah,
that Rich Mark
yeah,
told us about.
yeah. And that was one of my concerns with 29 Road. Oh yeah, we're gonna develop it out there and all this stuff. Well, I could hear gap, 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 gap coming my way on those deals immediately. So wasn't it was sort of money out of our pocket, it was withholding sales tax collections to pay for some of that stuff. So um the last thing I voted on with a or with an incentive was the multi-unit place over in Orchard Mesa over by Dos Rios.
Dos Rios, right. I'm excited to hear more about that.
Yeah,
Hopefully I'll be able to dive in with some of the candidates on that too.
And that was an incentive. That was some money out of our pockets on that whole thing. But, there were some really solid things to it. And I just said to council, this is the last one I'm voting for on multi-units. I think we got to give it some time to work and catch up and see, if we have enough multi-units. I want all the money from now on, any kind of incentive things to go to single family, affordable entry-level housing or homeless shelters and housing.
Well, when we talk about, I mean, as the vote was, and I recognize and appreciate, your full context around it. For talking about economic development and jobs, why not offer those holidays, those sales tax holidays for local businesses looking to expand?
They're probably available. It depends on what they come for. I'll tell you what, a lot of the economic development people that have come into town lately, they don't show up at city because they don't want to get hung up in all these requirements and meetings and
Get
all that
yelled
stuff.
at.
Off, yeah. So they just off they go. So it is available for certain things. Course Tech's a good example. Shoot, they put a gigantic edition on, 150 new, pretty good paying jobs. They never asked us for a nickel.
Mm, mm,
So, I think they probably, I think a lot of them look at, okay, if you put in good infrastructure, we have good streets, we have public transit available for our employees, those sort of things that the city has easy control over. That's what they want, fire and police, parks and rec for their
sure.
families, those sort of things. So, I it's to be determined. Well, look at the new mining place coming in. Of course, the state apparently gave him $10 million,
Well, there you go. There you go.
but we haven't seen any asks on that at all. We just heard about it when you heard about it. So
Right. We'll see what they get back when they do the soil samples and get a feasibility gap there. Getting some and they'll
I
maybe
asked if there were any issues with the land out there because we took that piece of land for the recycling center in the same area. And they said that they did their due diligence and there wasn't any mitigation needed. So,
okay, fair enough.
so fingers crossed.
Last 30 seconds here, Scott, and then I'll put us to a close. What's one question that you would like asked of these candidates?
Um, well, the big need still to me is affordable entry level housing. So
Okay,
everybody knows that. Everybody's been at the meetings, everybody's heard the public. Every one of those candidates should say, here's what I'm thinking and here's my plan for it, and this is how it's going to be financed. Now, that's a pretty big ask, but I think everybody's got to be able to talk about that.
awesome.
Um,
We
you
need to
know,
hear it. We need to hear some plans. We need to hear some concrete things that they're going to put forward.
even
And
if they're bad ideas,
yeah,
let's hear
we
'em.
can work with that. We can work with that. That's how you start, It's brainstorming, but bring something to the table.
Totally agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott. This was really exciting. We got things rolling here on Better Together with our election preview. We'll be inviting other candidates. So I'll let you go, Scott, and I'll just kind of wrap here last 60 seconds and really appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Good
Yeah,
job.
thank you. All right, everybody. So this is Better Together, our local page for some local reporting, as well as bringing forward issues that matter to the Grand Junction community, the Mesa County community, and hopefully beyond. If you would like to support Better Together, we could really use it. I need a green screen. I could use a new microphone. Want to just help get the word out. I'm going to add a couple things in the description where you can donate to this page so we can continue to invest in some local reporting as well as getting the message out on how we can all do better together. So thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed, and we'll be reaching out to candidates today to start getting those interviews scheduled so you can see what they have to say for yourself. Have a good day.